Hello, everyone. Got a few dirty jokes for you today.
So, to treat his obesity, a man named Roby goes to a private clinic. The doctor gives him 6 pills and says, "Take one each night before bed. That's all you need." At night, Roby dreams he's shipwrecked, washes up on a deserted island, and sees a stunning, dark-skinned woman in the distance. She smiles, then takes off running. Roby chases her through the jungle, over hills, across rivers, but never catches up. He wakes up soaked in sweat. The same dream plays out every night. 6 nights, 6 wild chases. By the end, Roby's lost 25 pounds. His friend Brow hears about this and wants in. He goes to the same doctor, but through public health insurance. The doctor gives him the same pills. That night, Bro also dreams he's stranded on a desert island. But instead of a beautiful woman, a wild tribe of angry natives spots him and chases him through the jungle with spears. He runs for his life, night after night, and by the end, he also loses 25 pounds. Confused and traumatized, Brow returns to the doctor and asks, "Why did Roby get the exotic beauty in his dreams, and I got nearly murdered every night?" The doctor shrugs and says, "Well, Roby pays me in cash at the private clinic, and you come to the hospital with health insurance." So Jerry is in the hospital recovering from surgery when a nurse asks him how he is feeling. "I'm okay, but I didn't like the 4-letter word the doctor used in surgery," he answered. "What did he say?" asked the nurse. "Oops." So an anesthesiologist is getting settled on a plane for a well-deserved vacation. Suddenly, a flight attendant calls overhead, "Is there an anesthesiologist on the plane?" Curious, she presses her call light and explains she is an anesthesiologist and asks what she is needed for. The flight attendant responds, "There's a surgeon in first class who needs his seat adjusted." So a nurse goes to the bank to deposit her paycheck. When she steps up to the teller's window, she starts patting herself down and finally comes up with a thermometer. Then she mutters to herself, "Great, some asshole got my pen." So a group of physicians is duck hunting. Finally, the first duck of the day flies overhead. The internist takes aim but then says, "That thing looks like a duck, but it could also be a goose or a quail or a chicken or even but by then, the duck is out of range." A few minutes later, another duck appears overhead, and the radiologist sees it first and says that bird is consistent with a duck, but it is also consistent with a peasant and a raven and a loon. "Somebody pass me the binoculars." But the duck flies away. Then a third duck flies overhead and boom, the surgeon blows it out of the sky and then turns to the pathologist and says, "Hey, Fred, what the hell was that thing I just shot?" So a patient visits a psychiatrist, looking gloomy. "Doctor," he says, "I think something's wrong. Things just haven't been the same lately." The psychiatrist leans forward. "Can you be more specific?" The patient sighs. "Well, I don't hear the strange voices in my head anymore." The doctor raises an eyebrow. "That's actually great news. It means the medication is working." The patient's eyes widen with relief. "Oh, thank goodness. I was starting to worry I was going deaf." So a man returned to the US after a trip abroad feeling very ill. He goes to see his doctor and is immediately rushed to the hospital to undergo a barrage of extensive tests. The man wakes up after the tests in a private room at the hospital, and the phone by his bed rings. "This is your doctor. We've got the results back from your tests, and we found you have an extremely nasty virus that is extremely contagious." "Oh my gosh," cries the man. He's in a panic now. "What are you going to do, doctor?" "Well, we're going to put you on a diet of pizzas, pancakes, and quesadillas." "Will that cure me?" asked the man hopefully. The doctor replied, "No, but it's the only food we can get under the door." So the doctor walks into the recovery room looking uneasy. "Listen," he says, "I have some unfortunate news. During your surgery, I accidentally left my gloves inside your stomach. We're going to have to open you back up." The patient stares at him, then reaches into his wallet, pulls out a $10 bill and says, "Tell you what, Doc, go buy yourself a new pair and leave me alone." So a 7-year-old girl came home and told her mom, "A boy in my class asked me to play doctor." "Oh no, honey." "What happened?" "Nothing," replied the little girl. "He made me wait 45 minutes and then double-billed the insurance company." So a moth goes into a podiatrist's office, and the podiatrist's office says, "What seems to be the problem, moth?" The moth says, "What's the problem? Where do I begin, man? I go to work for Gregory Ilinovich, and all day long I work. Honestly, Doc, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't even know if Gregory Ilinovich knows. He only knows that he has power over me, and that seems to bring him happiness. But I don't know. I wake up in a malaise, and I walk here and there. At night, I sometimes wake up, and I turn to some old lady in my bed that's on my arm. A lady that I once loved, Doc. I don't know where to turn to. My youngest, Alexandria, she fell in the cold of last year. The cold took her down, as it did many of us. And my other boy, and this is the hardest pill to swallow, Doc. My other boy, Greg, I no longer love him. As much as it pains me to say, when I look in his eyes, all I see is the same cowardice that I catch when I take a glimpse of my own face in the mirror. If only I wasn't such a coward, then perhaps I could bring myself to reach over to that cocked and loaded gun that lays on the bedside behind me and end this hellish facade once and for all, Doc. Sometimes I feel like a spider, even though I'm a moth, just barely hanging on to my web with an everlasting fire underneath me. I'm not feeling good. And so, the doctor says, Moth, man, you're troubled. But you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here? And the moth says, because the light was on. So, a man walks into the hospital for a minor hand surgery. As the nurse preps him for the procedure, he looks a bit nervous. Trying to lighten the mood, he asks the surgeon, "Hey, Doc, once this is all done, will I be able to play the violin?" The doctor chuckles and says, "Absolutely. Your hand will be good as new." The man grins and says, "Awesome. I never could before." So an old-school psychiatrist is giving a patient a Rorschach ink blot test. He holds up the first card and asks, "What do you see here?" The patient stares and says, men's private parts." The doctor frowns slightly, then shows the next card. The patient nods, "Lady private parts." Third card, 2 people doing adult stuff. This continues for all 10 ink blots. Every answer is something suggestive. Finally, the psychiatrist sets the cards down and says, "Well, it's clear you have a severe sexual preoccupation." The patient shrugs and says, "Me? You're the one showing me all the naughty pictures." So a very angry woman stormed up to the receptionist's desk at a doctor's office. "Someone stole my wig while I was having surgery yesterday," she complained. The doctor came out and tried to calm her down. "I assure you that no one on my staff would have done such a thing," he said. "Why do you think it was taken here?" "After the operation, I noticed the wig I was wearing was cheap-looking and ugly." "I think," explained the surgeon gently, "that means your cataract operation was a success." So a man goes to see his doctor and says, "Doc, you gotta help me. I can't seem to get anything done around the house. My wife says if I don't have a good reason for it, she's leaving me." The doctor gives him a quick once-over and says, "Well, honestly, the problem is you're just lazy." The man pauses, then says, "Oh, I see. You wouldn't happen to have a medical term for that, would you?" So an employee walks into the office with both ears completely bandaged. His boss, startled, asks, "Good grief, what happened to you?" The man sighs. "Well, my wife was out yesterday, so I had to do the ironing. While I was at it, the phone rang and I accidentally picked up the iron instead." The boss winces. "Ouch, but what about the other ear?" The man shrugs. "I had to call the doctor." So, during a medical school exam, the professor asks one of the students, "Can you name the signs of pregnancy?" The student freezes, having no clue. From the back of the room, his buddy whispers, "Hair loss, crooked legs, swollen belly." Desperate, the student repeats loudly, "Hair loss, crooked legs, swollen belly." The class goes silent. The professor raises an eyebrow. Tell me, do my legs look crooked?" The student stammers, "Yes, sir, they do." The professor frowns. "Is my hair falling out?" Yes, sir." The professor taps his belly. "And is my belly swollen?" Yes, sir." The professor smirks and says, "Well, then, when I give birth, you pass the exam." So a man accidentally drops a knife on his foot and cuts off his toe. He's rushed to the hospital, and after hours of surgery, the doctor walks in. "Good news and bad news," the doctor says. The man winces. "Let's get the bad news out of the way." The doctor sighs. "Well, during the chaos, the nurses accidentally mistook a piece of candy for your toe." The man's eyes go wide. "What? What kind of candy?" The doctor says, "A Tic Tac." The man blinks. "Okay, then. What's the good news?" The doctor smiles. "The good news is the surgery was a success. You now officially have a tic-tac-toe." So a hypochondriac told his doctor he was certain he had a fatal disease. "Nonsense," scolded the doctor. "You wouldn't know if you had that. With that particular disease, there's no discomfort of any kind." "Oh no," gasped the patient. "Those are my symptoms, exactly." So a girl takes her big fat cat to the vet. "My cat is very fat," she says. "All right," says the vet. "I will look at him." The vet picks up the cat and examines its teeth. Then she looks at its eyes, then into its ears. Finally, she turns to the girl and says, "I'm very sorry. I'm going to have to put your cat down." "Oh, no," the girl exclaims. "Is that because he's so fat?" "Yes," says the doctor. "My arms are very tired." So one day, A man was working with an electric saw when he accidentally saws off all 10 of his fingers. He rushes to the emergency room to get help. "Give me the fingers, and I'll see what I can do," the doctor said. "But I don't have the fingers, Doc." "What? Why wouldn't you bring your fingers?" asks the doctor. The man replies, "I couldn't pick them up." So the doctor walks into the exam room and says, "Mr. Jones, you might want to sit down. I've got some bad news and some very bad news." Mr. Jones gulps. "Okay, give me the bad news first." The doctor sighs. "The bad news is your test results came back and you've got 24 hours to live." Mr. Jones jumps out of his seat. 24 hours? How could there possibly be worse news than that? The doctor says, "I've been trying to reach you since yesterday." So a woman walks into a psychological clinic and says, "Doctor, I need help. My husband is completely obsessed with football. He doesn't pay any attention to me anymore." The doctor nods thoughtfully. "Well, have you tried dressing up a bit more? Maybe some makeup, nice clothes?" "I've done all that," she says, "but it hasn't helped." "All right," the doctor continues. "How about being more affectionate, gentle touches? Sweet words, maybe something suggestive?" "Tried that too," she sighs. "Still nothing." The doctor leans in and says, "Okay, last resort. Print his favorite player's jersey number on your nightdress and hope for a touchdown." So a man frantically calls the doctor and says, "My wife is pregnant and her contractions are only 2 minutes apart now. Is this her first child?" The doctor responds. The man replies, "No, you idiot. This is her husband." So a dentist is chatting with a colleague over coffee. "So," he asks, "did you ever get paid for those dentures you made for that guy last week?" The other dentist sighs. "Not exactly. When I went to collect the payment, his lower denture fell out and he took off running." His colleague frowns. "Wait, why is that your problem? If the dentures fell out, that's on him. You're not responsible." The dentist shrugs. "But during the altercation, I accidentally made it fly out of his mouth." So, a couple walks into the dentist's office. The husband steps forward confidently and says, "Doc, let's keep this simple. No anesthesia, no painkillers, just pull the tooth straight out." The dentist raises an eyebrow, impressed. "Wow, that's some serious toughness. You must have a high pain threshold." "So, which tooth is it?" The husband turns to his wife and says, "Go ahead, honey, show him the bad one." So a painter suffers from severe eye pain and is treated by a skilled doctor, recovering in just 2 weeks. When the painter tries to pay, the doctor waves it off, saying, "I don't need money, just paint me a picture as a gift." "What do you want me to paint?" asks the painter. "You can paint anything, as long as it's a painting done by your own hand." A week later, upon receiving the painting from the painter's hand, the doctor exclaims, "Oh my God! Thank goodness I'm not a gynecologist." Turns out, in the painting, the painter depicts a very large eye, with a portrait of the doctor in the middle. So, an American tourist in Australia got hit by a car. He woke up in a hospital with a doctor standing over him. He asked the doctor, "Did I come here to die?" The doctor replied, "Nah, mate, you came here yesterday." So John slowly wakes up from anesthesia, groaning. "Oh man, is it over already?" From the next bed, a patient replies, "Don't be too sure. They once forgot a sponge inside me. I had to go back in for another surgery." A man in the bed across chimes in, "That's nothing. They left scissors in me once." And another time, a whole bottle of alcohol. John's eyes widen in horror. Just then, the surgeon who operated on him pokes his head into the room and casually calls out, "Hey, anyone seen my hat?" So a woman rushes into the doctor's office, panicked. "Doctor, please, you have to help. My husband's gone deaf." The doctor stands up. "How long has this been going on?" "Just today," she says. He frowns. "And how can you be so sure?" She takes a deep breath and says, "Well, we were at a clothing store this afternoon. The saleswoman told us the price, and instead of looking shocked, my husband just smiled like an idiot. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong." So one day, a man stumbled into his doctor's office with a terrible cold. The doctor prescribed him some pills, but they didn't help. When the man came back, the doctor gave him a shot, but that didn't help either. When the man returned again, the doctor told him, "Go home. Take a hot bath, and when you get out, open all the windows and stand in the draft." "But if I do that, I'll risk getting pneumonia, Doc," replied the man. "I know," said the doctor, "but I can cure pneumonia." So the doctor stood by the bedside of a very sick patient and said, "I cannot hide the fact that you are very ill. Is there anyone you would like to see?" "Yes," replied the patient faintly. "Another doctor." So an internist, a plastic surgeon, and a pathologist on death row are about to be executed by electric chair. The executioner takes the internist to the chair and asks if he has any last words. The internist shakes his head, and the executioner sits him down in the chair and turns on the switch to begin the electrocution. Miraculously, the chair doesn't turn on. The internist is safe. "In my 30 years as an executioner, I've never seen this before," says the executioner. "Today is your lucky day. I'm going to let you live." The plastic surgeon's turn comes, and the executioner asks if he has any last words. "Nope," he says, with the slightest smile on his face as he eyes the chair. He is placed in the chair, and the executioner flips the switch, and another miracle occurs. The chair doesn't turn on. "This is your lucky day," says the executioner, astounded by the miracle that just took place. The plastic surgeon is free to leave. The executioner summons the pathologist. "Any last words, sir?" He smiles and says, "The chair isn't plugged in."